Pretty thighs, shawty, she a dime. Demon girl, evil eyes, she be telling lies. Slim waist,
Yeah, and speaking of email systems, you also, I guess, made the first commercial email system that was connected to the internet.
That's
And
correct.
and I guess like what prompted you to create, this type of idea when, as once again you said during ARPANET there was already an email system.
Well, first of all, I was around during the ARPANET period when network email was invented by one of my colleagues at Bolt, Baranek and Newman, Ray Tomlinson. And all of us on the ARPANET project immediately saw the value of electronic mail. We began using it. And we even started building distribution lists. This is way back in the early 1970s, so we're talking 50 years ago. The first email list that I joined was called Sci-Fi Lovers. And we were arguing over who are the good science fiction writers and what are the best novels. And the second list that I joined was called Yum Yum. It was a restaurant review of restaurants in the Palo Alto area run by one of the computer science guys at Stanford. So we already saw, even in the early 1970s, some of the social networking characteristics that the internet, or in that case, the ARPANET, could support. So now to fast forward, I left the Advanced Research Projects Agency in late 1982, after having spent 6 years there working on the internet effort. And I joined MCI and built for them a commercial email service called MCI Mail. And partway through actually after I finished the development of that system, I stayed at MCI until 1986. And then I joined my colleague, Robert Kahn, again, and a new company he had started called the Corporation for National Research Initiatives. Part of the way through that effort, around 1988, I began to think that the internet ought to be accessible to the general public. At the time, it was not. When we turned it on in 1983, it was strictly supported by the US government. By 1986, it's supported by 4 government agencies: NASA, the Department of Energy, the Defense Department through ARPA, and the National Science Foundation. And they had all invested in backbone networks, which were interconnected using the TCP/IP protocols. But the only people who had access were researchers who were getting research support from those 4 agencies. So I began thinking, how can I get this available to the general public? Well, I figured that the federal government was not going to pay for personal use of the network. So there had to be an economic engine building it, supporting it, so it could be made available to the public. But the rules for internet at the time were that no commercial traffic was allowed to flow on the government-sponsored backbones. That was an appropriate use policy adopted especially by the National Science Foundation. So I decided I had to find an excuse to break that policy. So I asked for permission while I was at CNRI with Robert Kahn. I asked for permission from the federal government to connect the MCI Mail commercial service to the internet as an experiment to see whether or not we could make the email interwork. Of course, my real purpose was to get them to allow me to put commercial traffic on the government backbones so I could demonstrate to the private sector that there was a business to be had offering internet service to the private sector. So by 1989, 3 commercial internet services popped up: UUNet, PSINet, and SurfNet in San Diego. On top of that, as soon as we had announced that we made an interconnection between the MCI mail system and the internet, the other commercial email services, Telemail from Telenet, OnTime from TimeNet, CompuServe, and probably 1 or 2 others, all insisted that they had to get access to the internet too. And they were given permission to do that. And so 2 things were happening in that 1989 period. First of all, the commercial email services were interconnected on the internet, and commercial internet service was being created. Final point is, with regard to electronic mail, is that the big surprise for the commercial email service providers is that while they used to be isolated from each other, you couldn't talk to anyone unless you had an account on Telemail or On Time or what have you, or MCI Mail. Once they were connected through the internet, anyone could communicate with anyone else. So you didn't have to have an account on TimeNet to talk to somebody on TimeNet if you had an account on Telenet because of the connection with the internet. That was a bit of a surprise, I think, for the email carriers who thought of themselves as a walled garden. So that's the sort of a broader story about the electronic mail connection and the internet.
Yeah, that first fall, like Telenet and all those other companies are the ones that are a bit too old for me, because once again, I really don't see them existing. Most of them are either they're either in big corporations or they're not here, I guess. Defunct.
Well, they've all pretty much gone away, although I built the MCI mail system in 1983, and in the course of my career, I returned to MCI in 1994 after my time with Bob Kahn at CNRI, and I shut the MCI mail system down in 2003 because it was not earning its living. And most of the others have shut down. CompuServe is gone, On Time is gone, Telemail is gone. But email is all over the place because the internet service providers often offer that in addition to all the other services.